coasting, hustling ourselves. That's basically when we have good intentions, but then we haven't really set up our practice. We haven't really set a point of attention up. And then we're like, okay, yeah, I haven't really intended my points in advance. I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna watch this movie. And then before you know it, your attention is not deliberate. And the movie is over and it's 2 hours after the movie. And during that entire time, you did not have an active point of attention. This is an imaginary scenario, but that can happen, especially if the points aren't intended in advance. So you went, you sat down, you got on the couch, but you didn't really intend where you wanted your mind to be during that 2 hours or 3 hours if you're watching, you know, a Martin Scorsese movie or something, one of the long ones. So that's kind of going into the practice haphazard. And is there anybody that would like to share? Have you ever felt the effects of what we call coasting, which is where you're not really engaging your point of attention, but you intended to, you wanted to, but you're just not for whatever reason because it's not.
Yes,
Yeah. Yes.
I um I differentiate though coasting with forgetting. Coasting turns into forgetting. Sometimes I will change my points of attention when I'm out on a walk, and that's okay. But um, I have to maintain them. I have to hold them and maintain them. Otherwise, I'm coasting. Then I'm just um, hustling myself, thinking that I just changed my point of attention to sunlight now, and I've just changed my attention to birds, and I change, and now I'm not really holding any point of attention. I'm being distracted by things, and sooner or later, then I lose my breath, then I lose my feet on the ground. I lose a direction, I lose two directions, I lose my point of attention, even if I only had one. Um, it'd be, and then coasting turns because I feel good and I feel calm and I feel relaxed because I've been practicing. And then sooner or later I forget. And then time frame goes by and I go, I'm not practicing anything. And that was a hustle. It was because of the hustle and the coasting that I lost it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that raises a really good point that this practice, I think, is actually harder when you do feel good, when things are going well, because it's easy to put the practice at the wayside because things are going how we want them to go. Maybe we're at a party and we're surrounded by friends and family and everything is great and we just lose our practice completely. And that may not be a problem. A problem, I'm putting that in air quotes. Maybe you still feel good at the end of the party. Maybe you still feel good for several hours after the party, but your practice isn't there.
And the
And
more often I do
yeah,
that, the less likely I am to be able
exactly.
to find it when I really need it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
then I lose the momentum, and then I have to really search for it, and it becomes work. And
Mhm.
it's much harder to do when you're in the middle of something that it's is less um, appealing
Mhm.
to find your practice and to have it have any um, effect.
Yeah. Now I'll jump ahead to maybe what we would call a more accumulated practice. Let's say somebody was going into that same setting where there's going to be friends and family, and you're already feeling good, and life is like feeling all right. Things are going well, and, you know, but I want to make sure I do my practice. What can I do? Well, maybe if you're around family and friends and people you haven't seen in a while, and there's a good vibe, why not make that vibe? That feeling a point of attention. Maybe you could even put attention on your chest space, open up your heart around these individuals, feel into your body, feel into the room. And then it's like, wait a second, I just took something that was already good and I just found an amazing underlying quality and aspect to the moment that I've never seen before. And then maybe you have a realization or you have, this beautiful thought or feeling or emotion that surfaces that is even better, putting that in air quotes too, than if you weren't doing your practice at all. So I think doing the practice at times that normally feel good only makes it better. Doesn't make it harder. It doesn't make it worse. it can only make it more profound. It can only make it deeper. It can only create the space necessary to notice dimensions and aspects of the thing that we may not have noticed otherwise. So I would say that this practice is more difficult in the beginning when you're feeling good, because it's easy to redirect when you're feeling bad. Like you're feeling shitty, you're like, I don't want this, I'm going to redirect. Like that's the impetus, you know. You go to the doctor when your stomach starts hurting, you know. What we want to do is try to catch it early, or maybe even prevent the thing from hurting in the first place through our actions and the way that we interact with our own mind and our own psychology. Yeah, so I think that's a great point. And I would say that intending points in advance, it's a thing to do, it has to follow the balance principle. So one thing I wouldn't recommend, let's say that, and I'll use Shayna as an example. Let's say Shayna wakes up and she says, all right, these are my 5 points of attention and I'm not changing them. Like this is it. I have intended them and I'm not going to change them at all. I think that's too stiff. I think that's way too rigid. I don't think that's allowing for the adaptability that you'll need throughout the day, unless you're just hunkering down in the corner of your room and you're just not going to interact with the human species for the rest of the day. Then you might be all right. But otherwise, I don't think that's going, I think that's too stiff. You know, that's too rigid. And there was some confusion, I think, in a few years ago when we would do this practice that we thought we had to jump out of bed and we had this point of attention and this is what we're going to do all day. You could, if that floats your boat, if that's an experiment or something that you really want to do, you could to a certain extent do that. But I think that's too stiff. But then on the other hand, we're all willy-nilly and we haven't really intended much in advance. Now we're too loose, too loosey-goosey with our practice, and that will end up coasting, we'll end up self-hustling. And before we know it, we're not really doing our practice, but we think we are. Like, oh no, I'm doing my practice. I feel great. I'm doing it. Wait a second. No, I'm not. Like, no, my attention was not in any intended point in advance just a moment ago. Okay, I got to get back to my practice. That type of thing. So really what we're looking for is a comfy middle spot where I wake up in the morning and yeah, I got some points of attention, but I'll change them if I need to, but I'll still declare it in advance and it will still be something that is intended in advance.